Our next speaker for today's session is Mr. Arun Rao. Mr. Arun Rao is a civil engineer graduated from NIE Mysore, and he has an ME degree in the highway and bridge engineering from MS University of Baroda. He's a fellow of the Royal Aeronautical Society, United Kingdom. He has over 45 years of experience in airport engineering in India and abroad. He has overseas experience, including work in the Maldives, Nauru, Algeria, Mauritius, Nepal, Seychelles, and the Singapore. He was a former chief of the Aerodromes and Ground Aids section at Air Navigation Bureau, ICAO, Montreal, Canada, responsible for Annex 14 to the Chicago Convention. He is also an ICAO safety oversight auditor. Prior to his tenure as chief or AGA in the ICAO headquarters, he worked as ICAO UNDP aerodrome engineer, and he has been the chief technical advisor to the director of civil aviation Maldives. He is a freelance consultant since retiring from the ICAO and has worked as an ICAO expert to Seychelles, India, and Singapore. He is a visiting lecturer at the Singapore Aviation Academy. Mr. Arun Rao, I humbly invite you today to speak on the topic privatization of airports, the pros and cons of the same.
Thank you, Shivani. My slides, please. While it's coming on, I take this opportunity to thank Professor Subramania, the School of Legal Studies, CMR University, for inviting me to this international conference on aviation law to be amongst the such distinguished speakers. And I think I'm right in saying that I'm the only engineer among such legal luminaries. There may be a little bit of technical words from time to time, and I hope you will bear with me. Okay, next slide, please. So this subject of privatization has been something of interest to me because my career started with the corporatization of the airports in India, and then moved on, and then eventually I was also associated with the bringing in the requirement in Annex 14 for international airports in every country to be certified by the state regulatory authorities. That was because we felt that at that point in time, there was a little bit of confusion as to who was responsible once it is privatized. There are different kinds of free messages floating in. Nevertheless, under the Chicago Convention, as we all know, the government and therefore the civil aviation regulator continues to be the focal point of civil aviation safety and is fully responsible. So that's the one that actually obviously is of much interest to me even today. Now, briefly, the transportation, is an indicator of the economic progress of a country. So every country is doing its best to make sure that the transportation network is efficient and working as it should be, safe and secure. And because that's a commitment of the government to its citizens. Because of that, the government automatically assumed the control of these facilities, and therefore they became the sort of owner, operator, and manager of the transportation systems. With the Wright brothers flying their first aircraft heavier than air, proving that their flying is possible, the aircraft development took place over a period of time. Between the two world wars, particularly, there was a lot of development. And then when the Second World War was on, they had the famous Douglas DC-3 aircraft, also called the Dakota, ferrying in soldiers to the front, bringing back the injured for medical attention, etc. And then also taking supplies to wherever it is supposed to go. That's what was on the horizon of the people who were interested in aviation development, because of which in 1944, towards the end of the Second World War, the Chicago Convention was signed by 26 like-minded countries. And we had ICAO established on that at that particular time, 7 December 1944. So the regulations started coming in, and then the aircraft manufacturers started improving the aircraft types and their performance. So it became a preferred mode of transportation. Next one, please. Next one. Okay, good enough. What happened was there is a significant growth post Second World War from the turboprop aircraft to jet-powered aircraft, like the B-707s, DC-8s that were coming in, and then it needed improvement. So the government-owned controlled airports, working through the Civil Aviation Department of the country for operational aspects, and the Public Works Department for engineering technical aspects, were able to manage that minimal growth for a period of time. But this aircraft, the 747 that you see on the screen, is a game-changing aircraft. It's iconic, very comfortable. I love it because this helped me in starting off my own career in India, as I told you. When this aircraft came in, it was obvious that it was a significant improvement, a jump in everything that we had previously seen in aviation at airports. 707s and DC-8s had a wingspan of about 45 meters and had an all-up mass of about 150 to 200 tons, and then passengers would be around average 200 per aircraft. With one aircraft like this, a 747 with a wingspan of 60 meters, mass of about 350 to 400 tons, passengers in excess of 350, meant there was a voluminous change required at a fast pace, because airlines started improving, and then there were more opportunities for travel, for education, for work, business, etc. So 747s were now norm, and that started off with the privatization, the corporatization around the world. Next one, please. So in England, what they did was they had already done was establishing the British Airports Authority as a body that was looking at improving the London airports. And then based on that successful formula in India through the Tata Committee, it was established, the International Airport Authority of India was established. And this was to look after the development of the four major airports at Madras, Bombay, Delhi, and Calcutta. Today it is Chennai and Mumbai. And that's what it was, and it functioned well. Sorry, the next one, please. Now, in the first 10, 15 years, things worked very well. But then the overriding factor was still the availability of funds whenever you want to do any development, being government controlled and managed in a way, albeit from a distance. The allotment of funds came from the government, and therefore you could do only so much. So your ability to grow, ability to improve the airports and to work at a faster pace with more efficiency were all a bit of a sort of contained or constrained because of these limitations. But then what happened was, during the early 90s, Boeing, McDonnell Douglas, and Airbus industry announced that they were going to come out with much larger airplanes for the simple reason. By then, there were a lot of flights happening all over the world. There was an issue about congestion of the skies because of too many flights, how to accommodate them, slots availability, space availability on the ground, etc. So why not have a bigger aircraft bring in more passengers in per flight rather than having 3 flights for bringing the same number of passengers? That was the approach. So we were looking at an aircraft that was larger than the 747-400, wingspan excess of 65 meters, all-up mass in excess of 500 tons, and then also capable of carrying passengers more than 500. Eventually, that came out, as you know, the A380. So again, such a quantum leap in the development of the airport necessitated a more dynamic approach, more scientifically advanced way of working, and then also improving the efficiency with new technologies, etc. So worldwide, there is a clamor also for airports to sort of become more attractive centers, to become the hubs of aviation, because after all, it brings in more business for them. So there was a need for a different approach to improving the airports. That's when the privatization came in. And then, so we witnessed a wave of privatization in the mid-90s. Next one, please. Around this time, we were also hearing, I was in Montreal, I was hearing that with privatization, there was a little bit of confusion between the privatized operator and the regulator as to who is responsible for what, to what extent. As we all know, the government and therefore the civil aviation entity of the country are responsible eventually for safety under the Chicago Convention. So this has to be clarified in a way. But then also there was a spate of new airports that are being developed, because of which ICAO worked on and brought out the requirements that every international airport in the country shall be certified to be in compliance with the safety specifications in Annex 14, plus other relevant ICAO annexes. So when this was happening, British Airport Authority was privatized, became BAA PLC, and now it's owned by a conglomerate of companies. In India, the thing was it was sort of a coming together of two bodies, IAI, the International Airport Authority of India, which was formed much earlier, and the National Airport Authority to become what it is today, the Airport Authority of India. But then for meeting this requirement of the new generation airplanes, they decided to privatize the four airports, Delhi, Mumbai, Hyderabad, and Bangalore. Hyderabad and Bangalore are brand new airports with everything right from runways to the terminal buildings, everything being absolutely fresh and new. Whereas Delhi and Mumbai have used the available runways, etc. More airports are being planned to be privatized in India because they have found that this is a successful formula. Singapore Changi also was same thing. It was working very well under the Civil Aviation Authority, but now it's a very autonomous entity today called the CAG, Changi Airport Group. But regardless of privatization, the bottom line is government regulatory oversight and surveillance continues, and they are fully responsible. Next one, please. So we are looking at privatized airports. Advantages, of course, number one, the major constraint was the availability of funds, as I told you briefly in the last few slides. The funds for development were freely available because they could borrow from the open market, they could borrow from the banks as much as they wanted to develop the airport the way they wanted it to be developed. And also the plus point is the governments were now free to be used for other important sectors like agriculture, education, hospitals, etc. So it was a sort of a win-win situation with the privatization of airports. It also brought in efficiencies because now airport private working as a commercial entity, you had to perform every member of the team had to perform to the limit of his efficiency and not step back, not slow down, allow the corporate operator to get a bad name. So efficiency was another beneficial outcome of privatization. Also brought in better quality, dynamic management, timely decision making. But you didn't have to wait for approvals to come from somewhere else and then keep on twiddling your thumbs. But the thing is, they were able to take a decision because there is a board of directors responsible for what they were doing, and therefore they could take a collective decision that technically and management-wise, that was the right thing to do, and it was put across to the regulator for his approval, and things were much faster. It also brought in modern technology, because with this, there was opening of the market in a way, liberalization, particularly in almost all the countries, so that you could get very competent people in, you could import the equipment that you wanted to have at the airport to make the airport, as I said again, the most attractive thing around to become the next hub. So also it brought in best practices that led to optimization of the resources available to you. Next one, please. This also had the advantage of freedom from excessive bureaucratic controls, procedures, and delays. Let's face facts, these were the basic thing that was slowing down the good corporate entities from functioning as well as they could have done. Whoever has been able to get over these problems has functioned well. There are a couple of public sector undertakings which are doing very well, but then that's not all. Not everybody could have the same. But in case of aviation, the development needs were faster, the amounts involved were much higher, so the privatization was the best solution. So availability of funds freely, as I said again, from the market they were able to borrow, and therefore the funds are available for them to develop the way they are. As you can see, the airports are beautiful today. In fact, I was reading an article sent by a friend today, 7 most beautiful airports in the world, and how they have developed with throwing away the traditional ways of doing a design and building to more modernistic way, wherein it is very, very attractive for the passenger to spend his time through an airport. So everyone is going the big way. And for that, you need funds, of course. Greater efficiency in the operation, management, and maintenance of the airports. Now things are much better at these privatized airports. I have also been, from time to time, working as a sort of a airport safety auditor, or helping an airport look at some project that's being undertaken from a safety point of view. And then I have found that definitely, yes, the maintenance aspects have improved. Of course, the management approach is totally different, saying that, yes, we want safety first. We want definitely anything that is required for safety, we will do. and you advise them this is required for safety, and they will follow it. That's a good approach of the privatized airport operators. Modern technology equipment have come in now and making it truly state-of-the-art airports and timely development, so that whenever there's a capacity need, you have to be ahead of the curve to be able to really benefit from the investment that you put in and the work that you undertake to develop the airport. One simple example is that I know that um, in the Southeast Asia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Incheon, they're all running ahead of time at this point in time. They said that, look, we are here, our present capacity, ultimate capacity is much more, but we want to be there ahead of the next demand curve. So they have started developing in a big way, almost all these 3 airports I know. And because something similar is going on the other side, Dubai airport is also developing significantly. And so, the race to be ahead of the curve, to have the sufficient capacity, to be attractive to the airlines and the passengers is really very, very interesting to watch. Next one, please. The additional advantages are introduction of modern concepts like the safety management systems and project pavement management systems. When we brought in the requirement for every airport to be certified, we said that every certified airport must have a safety management system. In fact, in the aerodromes and grounded section in my office, former office in my ICAL, we were the first ones to bring in this safety management concept. Of course, side by side with us was also the air traffic management section. They brought in the equivalent of that. They called it safety management program. And then it was, of course, eventually they brought on the integrated safety management system, as you heard from the other speaker about Annex 19. But way back in 2001, the safety management system requirement was brought in Annex 14. So as part of the system is also that, you need to manage your assets. Payment management system is in itself a small niche, but very elaborate and very encompassing, because the fact that entire airport functions because of the main assets, which is not the terminal building, not the attractive terminal building. It is because of the very unattractive runway, taxiways, and aprons. Below the ground thing that you see, a vast swath of concrete or asphalt, nothing more. But they are the main thing. If there is no runway, there's no airport. So they have to manage. So payment management system brought in the requirement that is to how you scientifically manage your systems, how you maintain the integrity of the structure, how you take appropriate action in the timely manner. So airport operation safety gets a prime focus because of the aerodrome certification requirements, and also the fact that we have the Universal Safety Oversight Audit Program, USO, in which there is aerodromes is also part of the total investigative scientific audit, safety audit approach. And we have the new requirement for the state safety program. Under the state safety program, every operator, airline, air navigation service provider or airport, everyone must have the safety management system again under the new regime. Privatized airports have implemented the Annex 14 specifications very well, and as well as a functional proactive safety management system. As I told you, whenever I have audited some of these airports, when I say that, look, this is required from safety, this is not good from safety point of view, you better do this, the privatized airports have heeded to the advice and implemented it, which goes to show how proactive and how safety oriented they are. Just because they are privatized and the commercial entities, that doesn't mean that they do not care for other things, but they have been doing it. Next one, please. Of course, I just said that Bangalore International Airport is one such, and then recently, when they got the flights back, they restarted. They had a very elaborate and comprehensive approach to maintaining the post-COVID situation of the people coming through the airport. Well, another safety management system approach. The other side of the coin, yes, it's a fact that private airports are run as commercial establishments, which means the return on investments is important as much as it is for you and me. So the question is only, will somebody look at risk assessments and cost benefit analysis as a way to dictate taking a decision? That I have been sort of very vehemently arguing and will continue to do so, that if you take a risk assessment approach, why do you take that? Because there is a risk. If there is a risk, if not today, tomorrow it's going to come and bug us. We don't want that situation. So you need to take appropriate safety measures, risk mitigation measures, to make sure that safety is not compromised. So Nevertheless, there is a possibility, and they might also say safety first or safety at what cost? Should we be spending so much money for that? What is the benefit? Again, please do not take a decision for somebody else because you may be looking at money, but you're not looking at your life. It is the life of the people on board the aircraft that you have to take care of, who do not know what your decision you have taken and how you have taken the decision. But whether you cut corners, whether you try to save some money by not necessarily going that little extra mile, please. Passenger safety, occupants of the aircraft safety is of primary importance. That's why we are all in the aviation business. Possibility of commercial approach resulting in finance management taking precedence, that's a possibility. But then, as I said again, so far, these things have not sort of really been the issues of much concern for all of us. Safety oversight of the regulator, of a very functional, objective regulator, coupled with the approach the privatized airports, as I've been talking through my own experience, to excel, to be the best, to attract more business, reduces the above concerns for us. Next one, please. I'll keep on pressing this. Conclusions, one by one. Airport privatization has a lot of positive outcomes, a lot more than the sort of so-called concerns or cons. Next one. They have been performing safely and efficiently as expected. Next one, please. An objective and efficient regulator and a proactive, competent, safety-focused operator means safety is assured, and that has been the case as of today. Next one, please. Nevertheless, the regulator or the government actually is still the last person standing there when it comes to questions on safety, efficiency, and regularity. Periodic safety oversight audits and surveillance has also helped maintain the level. Everybody on their toes, so that you have to perform well. If you are really very safety focused, but it's simply a good privatized, commercially broad-minded operator, you don't need outside safety audit. You do it yourself as part of your safety management system. Next one, please. Government's obligations remain unchanged, as we all have been saying and hearing, and that particularly under the Articles 8, 28, and 37 with regard to the airports and the other facilities. And also under Annex 14, we have this requirement of certification of airports. When we brought it in my office, we didn't envisage that it was going to be such a big influencing factor in the safety of aviation, the ground infrastructure safety. But we are very happy to really see that it is so. And then if you just go to Annex 14 and go to Chapter 1, Section 1.4, just read the introductory note, and it brings in very clearly the role of the regulator and the operator. The regulator says he gives a certificate based on the assurance given by the operator that it is safe for operations, and he is competent to do so. The regulator, having been granted the certificate, has promised to maintain, operate, and manage the airport safely, as promised, as per the safety specifications. So it brings together, by the certification regime, brings both the operator and the regulator together as one entity as far as the end user is concerned, that is the air traveler, the public. So safety assurance is by these two people. Everyone is responsible in this: airlines, air traffic management, airports, and regulators all. So government's commitment places the regulator in the forefront of this safety assurance regime. And then last one, please. Next, click. Safety of the traveling public, as I've been saying, it's because I've been talking on a slightly different fora as well, but then I have always been talking about safety of the traveling public. Because as I said again, I keep on asking when I lecture at the Singapore Aviation Academy, when you have traveled to this particular place, you come to a wonderful place, yes. But did you check that the airport is safe for you? Did you check that the airline has got competent pilots in command to bring you safe from your place to the place? Who would check? No one would check, because you will go paranoid, you will not fly, you will not travel anywhere. We trust. That public trust is what I'm referring to, that we must maintain as the aviation professionals. We have a responsibility. That responsibility cannot be shrugged off, or we cannot take it lightly. The regulator, airport operator are all responsible and accountable for this passenger safety. Next one, please. This is what I conclude with Marcus Cicero's statement made many years ago, that the safety of the people shall be the highest law. Thank you very much.